All right, Dave, what's up,
Hey,
dude?
what's up, man?
What is going on? Thank you very much, first of all, for taking the time today. So sick. I'm stoked to talk this new record and the band and all of it, man.
Yeah, man, it's gonna be fun.
So, here on Grown On Lives, we start, a little bit earlier on some of your personal interests, some of the things that kind of drew you into, where you've kind of ended up today with music and bands and such. And then we're going to end off on something a little bit more fun and lighthearted there. But
Right on.
first up, I wanted to ask you here as far as earlier memories of a song, band, or an album, that resonated with you, and maybe who made that interest in initially discovering that this said song, band, or album.
Right on, man. Well, where I grew up was, and it was just like top 40s type stuff that they played. And so I'm trying to think of like one of the first times I ever heard something that really like struck a nerve with me was probably like hearing Offspring. And then from like watching MTV, seeing like Rage Against the Machine music videos. And that was kind of like the first thing. And then the big turning point for me was I think I was in like seventh grade. And for whatever reason, one of my classmates was selling Rage Against the Machine's album Bomb Track on cassette tape. And I bought it off of him. And I would literally listen to it like every single day as I got ready for school. And it was just like, it just really stuck with me.
Okay, nice, nice. And
Yeah.
I feel like Rage, that was the thing too. They had like those live DVDs. I don't know if they were the
Hmm.
CDs yet, but they had like the live DVDs, or like even Slayer. They had some of
I
the live
remember
stuff that always
seeing one of
resonated for
them in
sure.
I think it was one of them like playing in Mexico City, and it was
Yeah,
crazy because the
Rage.
crowd is huge. And then I remember there was like a camera in the pit,
Yeah.
and like that dude was getting like shoved around. Like it was just absolute madness. Like the entire thing seemed so awesome though.
So was it more or less friends, or was there somebody that was in the family that kind of introduced you to heavier music?
Um, I want to say it came from friends, mainly my friend Josh Holton, who I would go on to be in a couple bands with actually. We I think we met at like a battle of the bands at my school when I was like a sophomore or something like that, and just kept in contact. And we just kind of like he would find bands and he'd send them my way, and it was like, oh yeah, yeah, yeah. And then I'd send bands his way, and it was just kind of just went from there. And then there was a group around the time when I was like in high school that were putting on shows, and then that's just kind of how that started, where I just kind of discover bands from them, bringing them to town.
Oh, okay. And
Yeah.
so, I mean, continuing on that, as far as your first show, what was that? Was that something that was a local deal, or did you go to a big concert first?
My
What was that first experience?
my first ever show was, I think I was still in middle school, and it was like some youth group trip because the OC Supertones were playing at
Oh my
some it was like this big church, like it looked like the type of church that would be like on TV, and it was like 45 minutes outside of town. So we went to that, and then they played with a band called Project 86, which were
Oh yeah, okay.
like a metalcore band. And I actually went back and like revisited some of their stuff, and it still kind of holds up
Still cool.
to this
Yeah.
day. I didn't realize at the time like how heavy of a band I was seeing. It didn't really like register, you know. I
Right.
was just like, oh, this is
Right.
this is different. I've never seen anything like it, you know.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
The first band that you'd mentioned, the OC, I haven't heard that name
Oh,
in
dude,
a
I
long
know.
time, so I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
God.
I remember at one point they brought out like a literal surfboard, and like the bass player got up and like literally crowd surfed like on a surfboard.
Oh, dang. Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, a lot. It seems like that's kind of a thing nowadays, but I don't remember ever seeing that like back when we were in school. I mean, I'm in my mid 30s. I'm assuming I'm
Yeah,
closer
yeah.
around your age too. So,
Yeah, yeah.
uh, but I don't remember ever seeing that. I mean, maybe like silly string and doing kind of stupid shit like that, or like
Uh-huh.
water balloons or something. But I don't ever remember seeing crowd surfing back
Yeah.
then.
Like literal crowd surfing.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
so what was do you remember like as far as going to a big package concert, big, something as far as bigger bands and it being like, oh, whoa, this is a legit concert.
Yeah, I remember like growing up through high school, I didn't really, because where I grew up was so far, it was like hours drives to any like actual metropolitan area in Michigan. And so all the shows that I went to were always just like the local like American Legion Hall shows. And then I think it was like freshman year of college, I actually went and I saw, I think it was like Every Time I Die, Himsa, and I think Cave In. and they were playing like one of
Oh,
their older albums like in its entirety. So I didn't realize what an amazing thing that was, like seeing it at the time because I didn't really know who Caven was yet. But and that was at the
sheesh.
intersection in Grand Rapids, and that was like the
Oh,
first
okay.
time I was just like, oh shit, like this is okay, like yeah.
Now, did you grew up in Michigan then, and then
I grew up in
some
Traverse
years back?
City. Yeah, I grew up in
Oh,
Traverse
yep.
City, and then I went to Grand Valley for 2 years, and then dropped out, and then lived in Grand Rapids for a year, and then moved back up to Traverse City, and then I
Okay.
moved to Ohio in like my mid 20s.
Okay, got you. Now,
Mm-hmm.
as far as that, moving to Ohio and everything, what was kind of that introduction as far as to the hardcore scene there, or to anything as far as like a music scene?
Um, it was I literally the first thing I did when I moved here. I just basically searched. That's back when like message boards were like the biggest thing. So I just searched like Cleveland hardcore message board and found the big one that everybody was posting on, and like it was like I think 6 days from the day that I'd moved there. There was a show at Peabody's, and it was like Wisdom and Chains, and then American Werewolves,
Ooh.
who are from here, and then I think this local band
Whoa.
Called Mad Minds opened the show, and yeah, so I got to see it, right off the bat, like within a week of living here, there was something going on. So,
Oh, sure. Okay.
hmm
And so, I mean, it's not to say too, because I mean, like, I'm doing this highlight this month, and it's something where it's not to say that Ohio has never had like a hardcore scene. I just feel like right now it's like this different energy. It's a different thrive than what it has been
yeah,
for some
there's
time.
there's a lot going on, man. It was really good. Right when I moved here, there was a couple years where dude, I literally saw Dead End Path like 6 times over the course of like 5 months here, like within like the first year of living here, and then it just kind of like dropped off for a couple years when it just seemed like every tour was kind of skipping Cleveland, and
Mm.
then right when it's starting to pick back up again is when COVID hit. So then that's when I think everybody just started forming bands.
Oh, okay, okay. So
Yeah,
especially like a big thrive within this last like 2 or 3 years for sure. Then.
dude, definitely,
Sick.
definitely.
Rose,
Hmm.
bringing it back a little bit here, one thing I wanted to touch on, I forgot that I had wanted to mention was some time back you had mentioned wanting a tattoo of the cover of Significant Other online, which I absolutely still love that idea. Tell us about the last album you remember picking up from a record shop, maybe based off of the cover art. What comes to mind?
I can't think of a record that I bought just solely without hearing it, but one of the first times I checked out a record was I was in like 5th grade, and my older sister had a bunch of friends over, and one of them had brought their like big, huge like book of CDs, and in that book was Dookie by Green Day, and just the artwork on it. First off, being in 5th grade, I was like, dude, they named it Dookie, like that's fucking hilarious. But then also it was just like it reminded me of like the Where's Waldo books, and it really interested me. So I took the CD and I put it in a CD player while they're all hanging out, and I turned it on, and just that first drum fill of that first song, and I was like instantly hooked. And that might have been
Okay.
like one of my introductions into like the whole punk hardcore thing as well too.
Oh, okay.
From what I can
Okay.
remember, honestly, it was just kind
Sure.
of a accident.
Okay. And that was something too. I mean, like with bands like Nirvana or with Green Day or like Nirvana or whatnot, every once in a while you'd have like the thank you lists, in the CD, and you would kind of like
Dude,
look through and scour and be like, oh, okay, I've
that
never heard of
is
this. Like, what the hell is this?
that's that's very, very like one of the major ways that I got into this too is because, like I said, I lived really far away from anything. So even to go see any type of touring band, you had to drive at least 3 hours. And
Oh yeah.
so me and my friend Josh, we'd find bands, we'd send them back and forth, we'd check them out, and then we would drive to the mall, we'd go to FYE, and we'd just scour the racks and see what we could find. And then in that, we'd find bands, we'd see like a cool name, you go listen to like the 30-second clips of it. If you like it, yeah, you buy it, take it home, listen to it, read the lyrics front to back, like, as the whole CD plays. And then I'd go through the thank yous, and then I'd look up bands with like names that interested me. And then next weekend, I'd go right back to FYE and see what I could find in the racks and just kind of go from there. That's
Yeah.
how I
Okay.
found, that's how I basically discovered Trustkill Records, which was like a really
Yeah.
big,
Okay.
and then the Hellfest DVDs as well were like a big segue into
So
it.
sick. Yeah,
Yeah.
totally. I mean, and that was something too with like even touching on like labels too. Like Eulogy was a big thing for me as far as like
Hmm.
kind of discovering the On Broken Wings and the Warriors and the and then
Yeah,
you get
for
to know the
sure.
score and all this stuff. It's like, whoa, this label has all this stuff. Like, damn,
Yeah.
there's what other labels are putting out anything good right now?
Yeah.
But so as far as your musical interest into getting involved, where does the first guitar come into play as far as you getting your first guitar or say even instrument?
Um, so I remember, I think it was in middle school, one of my friends, he brought his guitar into school and he was like in the music room just playing it. And I was like, dude, that looks so cool. And I was like, I was in band and I was like, I feel like that's an instrument I could learn. So I'd wanted one for a while, but like my parents weren't like rich or anything like that. So like they weren't just going to go buy me one. They were like, you got to prove that you really, want this.
Hmm.
And my mom had an acoustic guitar and she's like just basically made me learn chords just to like see if I would even want to like stick with it. And then
Okay.
I think it was the summer before freshman year, I got my first guitar, and it was a PV Predator. It's a Fender style guitar. It
Okay.
was Sunburst, and it had a humbucker in it, and it was such a piece of shit. Like I'm pretty sure it was just particle board. I don't think it was actual like real wood that it was made out of. Um, but yeah, and I got it from this store called Good News Music, which was in downtown Traverse City, and like it was in the basement of like this arcade. So you walk downstairs, and then it would just like floor to ceiling, like the whole wall, like guitars. But it wasn't like it was like off-name guitars. Like they were all really, really like cool looking guitars, but it was like nothing that you would have ever even heard of. And then
Okay.
randomly there was like a Fender and a Gibson in there somewhere. But the coolest part about that store was that sometimes they would get equipment in and they didn't really realize what they had. And I want to say one of
Oh
my
man.
friends ended up buying a 5152 there for like they had it priced at like under $500. And it was
Dang.
just like, dude, that's a steal. And like,
Yeah.
yeah, he lucked out because they didn't really understand like what it was. They just put it out there like, oh, it looks cool. Like, yeah, just
Yeah.
throw a price tag on it.
Oh man, that's fun. Like I just picture like I have a local spot in mind that that was kind of something along the lines of like this dude kind of stuck in the 70s and he has like his like certain brands that he's looking for, but other than that if he doesn't really realize what it is, it's just out there. It's like, you sure you want to
Yeah,
sell this for this dude?
yeah. And then it was eventually they brought in a Marshall Music, and then that's when you could actually find like a Marshall head or like a PV head or like a Mesa and all that kind of
Oh,
stuff. It was
okay.
like a smaller scale like Guitar Center, I guess.
Oh, okay. Okay. Did you
Yeah.
guys have like local record shops at all? I know you mentioned like FYE as far as looking for
We
music, but was there
yeah,
anything?
actually yeah, for the longest time we didn't have anything like that. There was a record store in downtown Traverse City at the time. I can't remember what the name of it was, but I never went in there to check it out, but I don't think I really would have found like any type of like hardcore records there. But
Oh, right.
then the bass player of the band that I was in like I want to say like 2007 or 8, he opened a record store, and then that's when it was
Oh,
like
dang.
anything you wanted, and he had really good music taste. He's the one who first showed me like Cleveland hardcore bands actually. It
Oh,
was
sweet. Okay.
I remember he pulled up to practice one day and he was listening to the album The Venomous Grand Design, and it was the song The Ninth Circle. And I was like walking up the driveway and he pulls up and he's just like, dude, you got to listen to this. And like I get in the car and he played it for me. I was just like, dude, this is fucking sick. Like it was my first time ever hearing Ringworm. And then I went on to hear Justice Replaced by Revenge, and I was like, yeah, this band's great.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah.
Totally. I love that. So, after getting these initial instruments and whatnot, where does your first band come into play as far as kind of contacting some cats and maybe playing in a garage or anything like that?
So first, there's so many first bands that just never became a thing. So
Okay.
the first one I can think of back in high school, um, we didn't even end up really playing, but it's such a good story. I have to tell it. I got in contact with this kid who lived like in Traverse City. So I grew up in Sutton's Bay, which is outside of Traverse City. So it's like
Okay.
two separate towns. And told some of my friends I was trying to start a band because I just, I'd had a guitar for a year or two, and I was like, oh, I want to start like just playing songs that I know, like MXPX covers and shit. Um, and someone gave me a screen name. They're like, hey, he's looking to start a band. So I got in contact with him, and we had the day set up. And he's like, oh, yeah, it's going to be great. We're going to get together, and like we're going to write all these songs. And my mom takes me there, drops me off. He's still asleep. He wakes up, and then it's like, well, my stuff's not here. It's at the drummer's house, and the drummer lives like 20 minutes outside of town. He's like, but we got to go pick up the singer first. So then I was like, all right. So we drive to the singer's house. He was older. He was like probably 18 or 19, something like that. And he's passed out from the night before. And we wake him up, and he rolls over, and he had drunkenly the night before tried to draw the the singer of Stain's whole tribal tattoo on his arm with magic marker, and had fallen asleep like on his face. So he had black marker smeared all across his face. And he just kind of got up and was like, all right, yeah, let's go. But then we never made it off of his porch for whatever reason. And then it was like 6 o'clock, and then like my mom came and picked me up, and like we never never played. But first band to actually see a show was I think it was like a senior, and we were called Coven. And it was me and then my friend Josh Holton. He played drums, and then some of his friends, and I was on vocals for whatever reason. I don't remember why that was a thing. And our first show was at this like old concert hall in Leland, Michigan, which is even farther out in the middle of nowhere. And it was just like small town kids that showed up because there's nothing to do on a Friday night. And then like some of our friends from Traverse City who put on the punk shows, and they showed up, and they, for whatever it's worth, like went off when we played. So it like got like pretty wild. And that was like my first show experience. But
dang, okay.
First time playing guitar was in the band Tiger. And that was a band that after I moved back from living in Grand Rapids, I got back in contact with Josh Holton, and he was trying to start a band again. I was like, well, I have like guitar equipment and stuff now that's like worthy of being in a band. So like, let's do it. And we just kind of formed. We were a thing for like 6 years probably.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And now, so that was like your first experience. So did you guys do anything as far as out of state, or kind of doing like small runs or anything?
We never made it out of state. We played all around the state, all around Michigan, but we had some offers, but it was hard because we lived so far away. I remember we got an offer for a show in Syracuse, but for us, Syracuse was like a 12-hour drive, and we didn't have a van. So it was like,
Oof.
are we really going to like take 3 cars 12 hours to play one show? And then I mean, it was a really good show. Like the lineup was amazing, I remember, but it was just kind of like, it's not feasible, you know?
Yeah. I mean, and anybody not knowing, like the Traverse City area in Michigan, that's already north. Like not even just that city, but that's already north. So anywhere that you're trying to travel down and then get to any of the other states is kind of difficult unless you're doing like a ferry situation or.
And
this was tough.
This was before iPhones too, so it wasn't like, let's just put it in a map and see how far it is and how to get there. It's like you had to follow MapQuest printed out like instructions, and like if you missed a turn, like you were fucked. So it's like,
Right.
So it was so much harder to even like, would have been impossible for us to make it happen.
Yeah. Okay. Well, what about a first recording experience? You know, may it be, something that was just, that was with buddies, or even something that, you kind of felt was a little bit more of like your first time in a legit studio type situation.
My first recording experience was, it was with Tiger. It was when we recorded our demo, and we recorded with this kid named Brian, and he played in this like really technical, like local metal band. They sounded like Between the Buried and Me. Like he was phenomenal guitarist, and he was kind of like starting to get into like home recording, and he had recorded the demos for his band, and they sounded like good enough, it was actually, you could listen to it and you could actually tell what was going on, so we went, it was set up in the basement of his parents' house, because he was like 2 years younger than we were, so like he was still in high school, and we went over to his parents' house, and he just had this desk set up with his laptop and then like monitors, and he had like maybe 3 mics, and I think we just did the drums with no click track. Just Josh just kind of like kept the beat in his head like well enough, and then we just kind of recorded to the drums, like, and that's just how it went about. It was real, very, very DIY.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Who was Brian? Is that somebody that's still like around in the scene?
Not that I know of.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I started that statement. I'm trying to think of what his damn last name is, so it's like it's not even gonna go anywhere.
His name was Brian Laubon.
Okay.
But no, I don't think he's not playing music or anything anymore.
Okay, got it. So as far as you get back into Ohio there, and you start kind of with the introduction you have now. Tiger was in Michigan, correct?
Yeah, that was a Michigan band, and
Okay.
then we broke up in, I want to say, like 2009 or 2010, because our singer got married, and then our drummer was finishing up college, and he was going for a degree where it's basically you finish and then you would immediately start working in your field, but it was like working on
Okay.
boats, so he was going to be gone for like 6 months at a time. Um,
Sheesh.
so we broke up, and then we kind of reformed with the same members, just minus the singer, and then kind of went for like a little bit more different sound. And we played like two shows with that band. We were called High Society. We never recorded or anything like that. And then in the midst of that, I moved to Ohio. So that was kind of the
Okay.
end of that.
Okay. All right. And you touched on as far as, kind of those initial shows and kind of the boards there as far as, kind of reaching out to some cats within the community there. So where does Last Gasp come as far as you meeting some of those cats and this band coming to form?
Last Gasp, I think, has been an idea like for years. Ryan and I have worked together for like 5 or 6 years, and Ryan's always been in bands, but then would always talk about how he wanted to start like a fast hardcore band. And like for whatever reason, I was either too busy because I was like playing in some other projects, or I just didn't have the time for whatever reason, and it just never, timing never matched up. And then it was like December of 2019, and he just kind of he brought it up again, like, oh, I want to start a fast band, in the vein of like the early to mid 2000s, like Boston bands like Mental, and I was like, well, that's those are all my favorite bands, growing up. So I was like, I don't really have a lot going on right now. Like, fuck it, let's do it. And he's like for real? I was like, yeah, why not? Because he had already been talking to John Millen, who was one of the original guitarists. He's like, yeah, John's
Okay.
already got like some ideas, and then we're trying to find a drummer, and then we both knew, George, just from him being in bands. We knew he was a good drummer, so we asked him, and then we were trying to. It took a couple tries to try like get in the same room, because I remember the guy that was originally going to play bass, just every single time, it was the same day every week that we were trying to have practice, and every day he was always like too busy because he was like a big jujitsu guy, so he was always like training, and we're like, all right, like, does Tuesday not work? He's like, no, I can make it work, but then it was just like it never did. So,
Obviously, it
um,
don't.
yeah. So then we finally, I think it was like
Oh shit,
late December,
that's
early
funny.
January, where we finally got in the same room together, and within the first day of being together, we wrote the first two songs off the demo.
Oh, okay, sick.
Yeah.
Nice. So that was the initial stuff that you guys had written. Then was that like did you have other stuff that you didn't end up using for that demo before the other because it's four songs, right? The initial demo
Yeah.
was.
No,
Okay.
so we had the two songs. I remember, and then John had a couple other ideas that he was trying to workshop. And then around that time, I went to LDB Fest, and I saw Brace War. And I hadn't seen Brace War in a
Oh
handful of
yeah.
years. And it reminded me that Brace War is like one of the best bands ever. And I mean, like that, honestly, in the early, like mid 2000s, the whole Richmond scene, like every band coming out of there was like my favorite band. Just the riffs that they would use, the groove that they had, it was so different from everything else, but it was so good.
Mhm.
And I was like, well, this is like my wheelhouse. This is kind of like what Tiger was going for as well. Like, this is how I write. So then that's when I came back and I wrote The Taker. And then also in there wrote Vastly Deep. Um, but we wanted to
Oh,
save
weird. Okay.
Vastly Deep for another like recording that we knew we were going to do, because we didn't want to just throw everything on the demo.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, and then George wrote At the Factory Gates, and then we were like, well, we got four songs, and George has the ability to record it, so we just recorded it in like 2 days, and then just we didn't know what to do with it, and we're just like, well, fuck it, just put it online. I mean, there's nothing else going on, we might as well just throw it up there.
Hmm.
And yeah, that's where we went. That was like the very first like couple months of Last Gasp.
Dang. Okay. So did you
Mm-hmm.
guys end up having like even because you mentioned Vastly Deep that ends up on the LP a couple years later, but did you
Mm-hmm.
have other stuff too where it was like I think we want to kind of keep this stuff off to the side for something a little bit more of a full length, or if you're doing
Um,
a split, or
no, I think right then, from what I can remember, I think we put out the demo and then we're like, um, let's just like sit on this. I think we had, yeah, no, that's what it was. So we put out the demo and then we had a couple shows lined up and then COVID shut everything down like in mid-March. So I
mm-hmm.
think we were kind of just like, well, we got the demo, let's just let it, like gain some
Put it
recognition. We've
out.
got these shows coming up. Let's just focus on the shows. Like, I think I had Vastly Deep written, and we were gonna try to play it, just like, oh hey, here's another song. But then it was, one by one, every show started getting canceled, and then we didn't have anything for like a year and a half. So
Oh, right.
yeah.
Okay. So then after this, you have Second Wave.
Hmm.
Bring us back to kind of some of the initial ideas or tracks that maybe had been written in the process for this bad boy, and then what brought on the redo of it? I always think that cover is so sick with like the rainbow swirls
Uh,
that kind of went into it.
so Second Wave was strictly a quarantine album. Because when we
Oh,
got shut
okay.
down at work, they're saying, oh, we're gonna give it 3 weeks, and in my head, I was like, I was mentally prepared. I was like, I'm not coming back to work till July, probably. Like, this is
Yeah,
gonna go
dang.
on way longer than what they're saying. And we didn't know what to do. We're like, should we still get together and practice? So I went over to George's house right after like work, and I picked up my gear, I took it home, and I just set up my amp like right next to my couch, because like that 2 months was literally me just waking up, like eating food, sitting on the couch, like playing video games, watch TV, and then I just like start playing riffs. So I had these songs like written, and then I think it was at one point we finally like were in the group chat, just like, what are we doing? We haven't been in the same room in like 6 weeks. Shows don't look like they're coming back for a while. Like, what do we want to do? Should we just take a break or what? And I'm like, I've got these ideas. George had some ideas too, because George just started writing immediately, like once everything shut down.
Mhm.
And we're like, well, we've got these songs, like we have the ability to record them. Obviously we did the demo. George since then had already gotten like way better at recording, just because like he was just messing around with that like the whole time. So we're like, well, fuck it, let's put out an EP. Like, why? There's no rules to this. Like, nothing saying that we can't just do this or like keep writing music. So that's how that came about. And then the Redux, I think, was just, I think that was mainly George being like, oh, I learned how to master songs even better, and I can make these sound even better. And we're like, yeah, just go ahead and do it. Like, it doesn't matter. Why not? I mean, we can make it sound better. Just do it.
Nice. I love that. And I love that. I guess kind of going
I
back to,
kind of
the
forgot we did that,
Warriors.
honestly. I forgot
Yeah.
that, like, yeah, like,
It kind
yeah.
of brings me back to that with War is Hell, how they had the orange, they had the orange cover, and then they put up the blue that was like the Redux, and then
Uh-huh.
that was that was kind of like the vibe that I had there. And I don't know if I
Yeah.
don't think there was anything. Was there anything additional added to the Redux? It was just the songs that
No,
were remastered.
I think so. I don't know if like, yeah, I think it's just the songs are remastered like a little and sound a little bit better.
Yeah, yeah, totally. With
Hmm.
okay, so with the band, doing covers like AFI and My Chemical Romance and Beastie Boys, have there been any, tracks that were mentioned maybe in the chat or something that you were like, man, I really think that we should do this and just never came to?
Yeah, I think we were throwing around the idea of doing a Final Plan cover, but then when it came down to it, we realized the songs are really fucking hard to play, and the drums are like so insane. George was like, dude, there's no fucking way I'm doing that. Um, I keep trying to float the idea of like, if we ever get like a bigger out of town show, of doing Birth is Pain by Ringworm.
Oh,
Yeah, because I was like, I trying to convince the guys that like, dude, if we play it, people are gonna fucking murder each other. Like, it's gonna be absolute madness.
yeah.
There's some of them are like, I don't know, it really fits for our style, and I'm like, I don't. Who cares? Like, this is it'd be sick. Um, I always thought "Freedom" by Rage Against the Machine would be an awesome song to cover. Not even just for
Dude,
us. Like, if any band were to do it and pull it off, even just the fuzzy solo in the middle, like just do the whole thing. I think that'd be so sick.
that song rules. Yeah, I mean
Yeah.
that is one I feel like if people do like Rage, it's kind of the same like couple of tracks. So that's sick that you bring up that track, or like even something like Born of a Broken Man. I don't know if you're into like
Yeah.
the later stuff, but God, dude, yeah. So I've never thought of that. Especially with like Ryan's vocals, like doing a rage thing.
dude. And I mean,
Go ahead and
it's
check
like
that out, boys.
it's got enough groove to it too that like I feel like live kids would mosh to it too, even though it's not like
Totally.
mosh parts. Like,
Mhm.
yeah,
Well, there's still. I'm trying to think of what like particular examples that I can think of now. But I mean, there's been bands that have played tracks that aren't necessarily a hardcore band, but that go off or I don't know, maybe even something like a title fight thing or whatnot. It's like you're
hmm
not moshing to that band, but I mean, like still, it has like
yeah,
that feel of it,
it's
where
got
you hear it
energy.
and yeah, for sure, for sure. So with the latest album, bring us into the story weight of it all. What can you tell us about initial tracks or riffs that were written for the album? The initial components that
hmm
started up the writing process for this.
Like I said, Vastly Deep. Honestly, that song was written before Second Wave was ever even a thing, and it was like we wanted to save it, and then I think the idea came about putting it on Second Wave, but I was like, it doesn't really fit. Like Second Wave is kind of everything we put out just sounds different compared to like the last thing that we put out. So like it doesn't
Mm-hmm.
really fit, and I was like, and also the way that it ends, it sounds like it should be the end of an album, and we saved it for the Storied Way. It's just insane that like wrote that song like probably 2 years ago now at this point.
Yeah, okay. What
Yeah.
with what is the sound bit at the end of that? What is that from?
That's it's the song "We'll Meet Again" by I can't remember what the artist's name is.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but that was Ryan's idea.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay. All
he
right.
floated the idea to us, and then we listened to her. It's like, oh, that'd be cool. Yeah, so we
Okay.
threw it in there.
So the first track that you guys drop is "I Was a Teenage Maniac." What can you tell us about this song and maybe what was the inspiration behind this being the first track to release?
I think that was the one that just kind of it's like the standout one. And it sounds like a single. Like we like George wrote that song, and I don't think he really like wrote it to be like, oh, this is going to be the single track. It just kind of came about being like that,
Mm.
and I'm pretty sure it started. It was supposed to just be an intro and then a song, and then somehow it just got fused together into one whole song. But like the very
Oh,
beginning part, I
okay.
think was supposed to just be like an intro for the album, but then it just kind of all flowed into one thing.
Dang.
Yeah,
I mean, I have to say, like, that song, I dug your guys' stuff already. I thought you guys were sick. I wanted to play
thank
shows with you
you.
guys. We had talked, like, within the band about, like, different bands that were around here, Midwest bands, and,
hmm
you guys coming up. But that track, like, when I initially heard that, I was like, whoa, this is bringing
That
it
was the
to,
one
like,
too.
a legitimate fan base where I'm like, I'm gonna follow these dudes and like see
Dude, that's
what
awesome.
the hell they have going on for
Thank
sure.
you.
So
That was the one too where we're like, yeah, this is like I don't think people are gonna like see this coming, honestly. And I remember when we had the early recordings, I was showing friends, and every single person would say the same thing. They'd be like, "Yeah, this isn't what I was expecting, like to hear." And it was like, "It's good. It just wasn't what I thought. Like you was going to be like the next thing that we did." And we're just like, "Yeah, let's just do it. Let's just put it like as the first one that we put out because it's like we're kind of going in a different direction, like from what we had been playing as well. So we're like, it's a good like, hey, this is kind of like what to expect like in the future coming
yeah.
from us type thing."
Okay. Okay. With
Yeah.
the cover art, that was something that I wanted to dig into. We have John is it Mayo or Mayo? I don't
I
want to
think I'm pretty sure
mispronounce.
it's
I hate
Mayo.
that shit. Okay, Mayo.
Mayo.
Supplied the cover art for it. What can you tell us about maybe some of the inspiration from anybody or maybe some of the ideas that were given as far as for the cover art for it?
I can't remember if we bought the artwork before we had the idea for the album, or if it just kind of happened that we had the idea and then Mayo had that design available. But
Oh, okay.
it just kind of worked where it was like a lot of the songs like Ryan's lyrics about just kind of like internal struggle, dealing with just everyday life shit and then just like other type of stuff. So it was just like the dude with like the jail like in his forehead. We're like that. Like, it's kind of sick that it works. But from what I remember,
Yeah.
we didn't. I don't think we gave him an idea and he drew it. I think it was just a design that was like already drawn up, and we're like, well, that works, and we bought it off of
Oh,
him.
okay. So it
We
already
have.
existed and you guys saw it, or was it something
I
that
think
he came
so.
up with?
I
Oh, okay.
think so.
Okay.
I'm not. I can't remember because this is shit. This was like almost 2 years ago at this point when we were like
Yeah.
trying to figure that all out.
Sure. Okay. All
Hmm.
right. With now you guys recording with Steve at the old Bottle Works there. Bring us
Yeah.
back to recording with them, and as far as how if anything was different to his style of recording, and what was kind of what stood out in the process of working with him.
Um, it was my first, well, first, it was my first time ever recording with a click track. Everything I'd done with
Mm.
Tiger, even the full length that we put out, we didn't use a click track. We just went in there and like Josh laid down drums while I played like live guitars like in the headphones, and we just kind of like hoped that it, you know, sounded okay, and it does. So that was my first time dealing with click track, um, and I don't know. Recording with Steve is awesome though. Steve is very very good um, at making sure that you sound really really good. So and
Oh, okay.
it was just cool like being in like a real studio too, because like the other studio that I'd recorded at was also a home studio. It was like someone's basement, but it was set up more like a studio. But this was like an actual separate building. You go in and it's like it's the big open room where the drums are recorded, and then the control room where like the computer is and all that. So
Sick. That
yeah,
rule. That rule. And that's something too, I mean, like listening to the earlier, because the earlier stuff, both the demo and the EP and your split too, did George do all three of those then?
yeah, yeah. That was
Yeah.
all done at
Okay.
George's house.
Uh, I mean, and props to him too, because those all sound great as well.
Yeah, yeah.
For sure,
He got really good at it, man. He got
Yeah.
really good at it.
What do you remember being the first song that you had gone in and recorded on?
I think the first song that I recorded was "Only Jokes." And I think that was
Okay.
specifically because I was like, I'm pretty confident I can just one take this. It's a minute long. Like, I want to get this done because I'm looking at like 10 hours straight of like recording guitars. And the songs are all really fucking hard to play. So I was like, let's just do Only Jokes so I can start off on a high note and then just kind of like go from there.
Start out on a positive energy and
Yeah,
not make
yeah,
this completely pummeling the whole time. Yeah.
yeah.
What ended up wrapping up as far as for guitar tracks for you? What was the last song that you were working on?
I think I think I recorded Vastly Deep last, and that wasn't for any like artistic purpose. I think it was just strictly because it's like, I wrote the song because that's the thing is Storied Weight. Most of those like 90% of that album was written by George. I think there's
Oh,
two
okay.
songs on there that I wrote, but yeah, like he wrote that whole thing. That was the whole thing too. Is like it was still there's no shows going on. George was just a madman, like writing song after song after song and staying up for like days on end, just recording shit. And like it'd be like every day he'd send like one or two full songs. He's like, "What do you guys think of this?" And we're like, "Yeah, it's cool." And then like next day he's like, "What do you guys think of this?" And it's a whole other song. So like it was like by the end of summer of 2020, we had like a full album's worth of songs. So we're like, what do we want to do? Because like there's nothing going on. We've got all this material. Like, should we just go record again? Like,
Yeah.
um, but yeah, I recorded Vastly Deep last, and I think that was strictly just because I knew my hand was going to be really tired, and that song was basically muscle memory at that point. So I was like, I can just get through it in like one take and call
Okay.
it a day.
Yeah, yeah, for sure, for sure. And those are the types of things. I mean, you think of just all of the bands over time. Like not any band is the same as far as the writing process or the recording process. You have sometimes where somebody's just going and they're writing everything that sounds like the band. It's like, well, for the better part of the band, shoot, these songs rule, dude. Let's
Hmm.
go with
Yeah,
it. So, I mean, sometimes I mean, there's different times within like bands of my own where I write a riff or I write like a track and like, man, we should really use this, and it just doesn't end up working for whatever reason. It's like,
hmm.
all right, I'll sit this one out for sure.
Actually, I
For the
watched.
better of it.
It was an interview with Will Putney recently, and he had something really good to say where he said like because I guess when he records bands, he's very hands on, and he'll even like write guitar parts for the band. And he
Mm.
said that sometimes like some like egos get hurt because they're like, oh well, they just want to use all those things. But he was just like, at the end of the day, like when someone listens to an album and it's really good, and they're like, that's fucking sick. The first thing they think isn't that's sick, but like the guy playing guitar didn't write any of the songs.
Yeah,
Like he's just
yeah,
like just
right,
be happy with the
right,
outcome. So it's like
yeah.
it's yeah, it's gotten to that point now. I mean, George has so many songs written already now for like the new thing that we're gonna do. So it's yeah, it's gonna be
Dang,
yeah. I'm excited. I'm really
that's
excited
so
for it.
sick. Well,
Yeah.
and two, like even if you think of like in perspective of like different bands and vocalists, for instance, you have a band where it's like the front and center person is the singer, and come to find out that they don't write the lyrics or something. Not that that's your
Hmm.
guys', your the situation in Last Gasp as far as like, but even like Rush, you think of that band, and you think of
Hmm.
how many of those songs were written by the drummer, and it's like, whoa, I mean, you can't. I don't think anybody's really kind of digging into things like that as far
Yeah,
as like the
yeah.
listening experience. It's just like, whoa, this is hard. I love
Yeah,
it. What ended up
exactly.
being your favorite track out of the outcome of this album here?
I think my favorite song is Not the One. I love the
Yes,
guitar work on it, and it's really, really fun to play. Really fun to
nice.
play.
Yeah, I love that one. That one's so sick. You guys just recently played a show in Ohio, right? And you opened with that.
Yeah, yeah. It was the No Pressure show. That was our first time playing it live.
Oh,
It went
sick.
off, seemed to go off pretty well.
That middle part, especially like when George is doing whatever triplets or I don't know. I don't have much of a drum lingo down. I just normally
Uh,
try to play it and figure it out. But hearing that part, I'm like, ooh, this is tough. I love that for
yeah,
sure. Yeah, so sick. And I'm excited too. I'm going to be having Ryan and George on as well. To be digging more into different aspects of the album and the band too. So this is absolutely rad, and I'm loving hearing more about all this stuff too, for sure. So seeing all the announcements, and you guys mentioned having maybe some new music out, that rules.
yeah. We're recording this spring sometime with Steve, and it's
Dang,
gonna be
awesome.
either I don't know, either an EP or an LP. I don't know. We're just kind of like seeing how it goes. Like just with everything, just how many songs can we write before we have to go record type thing.
Sure. Well, it's so hard with like COVID too, because it was actually at Sweatfest. I was talking with Bitter Truth, and I was sitting there, kind of talking like, man, when are you guys gonna have some new stuff coming out? And are you guys writing anything? And it's like they just released an album.
Yeah,
It's just because we're not seeing bands playing or anything, it's like you all of a sudden feel like because a couple of years have gone by that like people are sick of the material, and it's like, man, you we just
yeah.
released an album like that. It kind of sucks just because you're
It's
not able
it's
to
weird because
run with it.
it's like you're sick of your music, but like nobody's even heard it yet. You
Right.
know, that's what sucks too, man. Is just how everything is so pushed back with vinyl too. It's like we already know that like if we want to put this out on vinyl, whatever it is that we record this spring isn't even going to come out till like next year, which is just like
Oh, right.
fuck. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good thing as far as like it's still like a relatively decent feel, as far as time for like when you guys release this album, as opposed to if it's something that's still a couple of years out just because of like
Hmm.
a vinyl date or whatever. Like, I don't think that's unfair. I think it's something where people just aren't realizing, or thinking about like, oh man, there hasn't been shows, so like this album's come out and I haven't even seen these songs played live.
Yeah.
All right, so one last thing I wanted to ask you here, scouring through, some of your pages and some of the things that you posted online here is through musical interests. You mentioned the Extermination compilation, which I
Hmm.
absolutely love that thing. Introduced me to some cool acts on that. Uh, so from this, if you could make a Dave Stermination compilation out of some songs that I've found through some of your bands that you've mentioned, what songs would you have from each of these bands? So first of all, we're going to say System of a Down. What song would you have from them on this Dave Stermination compilation album?
System of a Down. This one's hard for me because and it's funny because like the other day Ryan put on Toxicity at work just randomly, and we're listening to it, and I realized it's like, dude, like every single song on this album is so good, like so good. But I'd say Science or Jet
Oh,
Pilot or Jet Pilot. I really
oh,
can't
dang.
decide.
Okay.
Yeah.
I dig that.
Hey,
Oh, let's see. We're buffering out.
are you good?
Boom. I got you.
All right, cool. I don't know if that
For
was.
whatever reason, Yeah, that was like buffering there for a second. I don't know what exactly
Hmm.
was going on, but
Yeah,
I
it
heard
froze on
everything you
mine
said.
too. Oh,
Oh,
okay.
okay. Weird. All right. Next up, Fire and Ice. It's a band I do
Fire and
not hear a
Ice,
whole lot of people talk about.
which is sad. Everybody should have talked
Oh
about
my
that band.
God, so sad. I know. I was supposed to
Riff
see him with
Riff
Trapped
City,
Under
dude.
Ice and Backtrack, and they
Oh
ended
my
up dropping
God.
because the singer, I think, got into like a motorcycle accident.
Oh,
It was
really?
in Lansing.
I've
Yeah.
only gotten to see them one time, and it was at it was called, I think it was called Hellbent Fest, and it was in like
Oh yeah.
southeast Ohio, like literally on like the West Virginia like Ohio border, and it was in like a gymnasium of some like elementary school. But it was sick. It
Nice.
was so good. I would say Fire and Ice, Ultimate Power. I love
Oh,
that song. I love the guitar work on it,
I mean,
and
I
then
can't
just
get
that,
past Not of This Earth, but that song is so so sick.
and then like that stompy part at the end, it just hitting the same note. I
Yeah.
love that.
All right. Next, we got Deftones. What are you gonna slap on this
Deftones.
bad boy from this band?
It'd be a toss up between Nosebleed and
Oof.
Fetty Sarah. The second song, is that the second
Oh
song off
yeah.
White Pony? Just because
Yeah.
the drums at the beginning, so sick.
Dude, I absolutely love that. Their newest album that they came out with, they basically had said that it was supposed to be like the sequel to White Pony without like the dance hall drums, which I was like, man, kind of wish they would have brought the drums back, but
Oh,
it's
for
still
sure,
awesome.
yeah.
I don't know. Have you listened to the new album at all?
No, I don't think I've listened to anything past. And even then, like all their newer stuff, I kind of just give it like one playthrough, and then that's it for whatever reason. I really don't know why. But
Oh, this,
what was the one with all the flamingos on the? What was it called? Gore?
yeah,
Or
that album was not good.
yeah, that was
I
the
wasn't
last
big
one
on
that
that at
I
all.
listened to. It was
Oh, okay.
heavy. There was some really heavy songs on it, but I remember it was like this is
It's
yeah.
mediocre. Yeah, middle of the mall. You know what I'm saying? All right. What about Diamond Youth?
Diamond
Another
Youth. I'd
band I love.
say Fix of Mine probably.
Oh yeah.
That's
Okay.
that's that's maybe one of like my favorite songs ever written too. It's so
Dang.
catchy, so good.
Dang. I kind of wish that they would have stayed with that initial EP sound. Like some of the stuff
Yeah, it
kind of
wasn't.
drifted off in a weirder when it just went to like Diamond or whatever they changed their name to.
Yeah,
I
are you
don't think
talking
that
like
had
that
anything to do
album
with
that
it,
was
but
like all orange? I think I checked it out
yeah.
like one time. It didn't really, and I was really hoping for just a full length of that EP, and
Yeah.
it wasn't that. But I mean, it was
Yeah.
good. It just didn't hook me the way that the EP did.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. What about Limp Biscuit? Let's slap them with this first. You know, we got to
I'd
put some
say
on there.
Counterfeit,
Okay.
Counterfeit for
Okay.
sure.
Nice. All right. The
Yeah,
Beautiful Ones.
beautiful
Such a
ones.
sick band.
I'm gonna throw a curveball, and I'm gonna say Jaded, off of Jaded Love, just
S-
because like the fact that they wrote like an amazing post rock song and made that the
Yeah.
beginning of that album. Like honestly, if you played me that song and I didn't know who it was by, and you're like, hey, check out this new like This Will Destroy You track, I would have been like, that's fucking awesome. I love it. I wouldn't have known. It's so good.
Totally. Who is that singing on that song? I've always wondered, and I've never had a physical
That's
copy to.
no, it's the instrumental song at the beginning of Jaded Love. It's the very
Oh,
first, the
oh, oh,
instrumental
oh.
intro. It's like a post rocky like really like uh
Do 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 do.
yeah,
Is
that one.
that the
Yeah.
one? Yeah, yeah. Okay, okay.
Hmm.
I was thinking it was the track on that album for some reason that it had like the female vocalist. I've
Oh no, no,
never.
no. This is the first song off of it, like that in the
Okay,
instrumental intro. Yeah,
nice.
I'd put
Okay,
that
yeah,
on the
that
comp.
rules. I love that. Sweet,
Yeah.
sweet, and such a cool band too. I know. I think I saw you post about that Sour. That's what that Sour band reminds me of.
Yeah, they
Like
do. They
Nate and
remind
all of
me of
them.
that
I'm
a
like,
lot. Yeah.
man, I wish the Beautiful Ones would do more. I That's like
Me
another band.
too.
I'm just like thriving. Like what is going on?
Hmm.
All right, last up, Last Gasp. What track would you put on from your band there, my man?
Um, right now it would be I gotta look it up. I wrote it down. 'Cause it would be one of the newer songs that we have like an idea. We don't even have lyrics for it. Like it's just workshopped, and right now it is called Tom Intro More Toms dot Wave. But whatever that song turns into is the song that I would put on the comp. But of ones we have recorded, not the one.
Okay. Maybe just leave that. I mean, now that that's out in the universe
Yeah,
and
we might
people are
as
like,
well.
dang, what song was that? So sick. Look, dude, this has been absolutely awesome. I really appreciate the time, and I appreciate you taking it out of the day. I don't know if you're going to be watching the big game in a little bit
Oh yeah,
here.
I will be. I will be.
Okay, all right, yeah,
Yeah, my dad was
it's
a
going to be
Bengals fan when I was growing up, so it's kind of it's got some meaning to me. It's cool to see him in
sure.
the Super Bowl.
Sweet, sweet, awesome. Well, that's awesome, man. And with the big game, and everybody kind of getting down and whatnot. I appreciate the time, and appreciate you taking the time
Yeah,
out
man,
this
for
morning,
sure.
and getting involved in some of this band, and talking some Last Gasp, my man. This has
Yeah,
been
man, it's
awesome.
fun.
All
It's
right,
fun.
dude.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. I'm going to be having the rest of the boys on. Ryan had something on his date that we had to move that around, so we're gonna have to reschedule. But here in a couple of weeks, we're gonna have
Oh,
George
okay.
on, and we'll continue talking.
The George the George one will be fun. I'm ex I'm
All
excited slash terrified for that one, but yeah.
right, dude. Well, thank you very much once again. This has been awesome, and take care
Yeah,
and
man.
stay healthy and stay safe, my man.
Take care.
All right. Bye.
Dun, 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 dun. He's a lo-fi horror guy. Yeah, he's kind of a guy, but he is so lo-fi, lo-fi, a horror guy. Yeah. Lo-fi horror guy has been recorded in front of a live studio audience.